Hi everybody, this is our Whittington video. We're starting with chapter 18. 18. Dick meets his cat. The next day after school, Abby brought her word book. She read aloud the first list, EI and IE words. Receive to grieve. Whittington said those were too hard. The lady said 12 was too many. With Abby reading, the choices they ended up with were coming, hoping, way, foreign, and writing. Abby wrote out the words in block letters and taped the list on the stanchion under Psalm. Coming and hoping went pretty well after some to and fro about the different sounds of O. It was a relief that ing always sounded the same. Ben got stuck on way. Why does it have IG in it? It doesn't make sense, Ben snapped. I can say the letters in it okay, I just can't make the words sound out. That's what gets me in trouble in school, silent letters. You never know which ones not to say. Abby admitted that she couldn't make way work either if she sounded out every letter. Ben jumped up and drew an angry line through it. Everyone was tense. Stretch! Time to stretch! The lady yelled with a great flap. Coraggio had been holding his breath through way. Now he uttered a powerful crow. The horses and the kids headed out for a dash around. The bantams bickered furiously until the lady hushed them. She looked at the cat. His mouth was pulled tight. Ben's bewilderment reminded him of the boy in his home before. He didn't want Ben to suffer and be sent away like that boy. When Abby and Ben came back in, the cat made them sit down together for a minute and take deep breaths. We all fell down learning to walk, he said. We don't remember how hard it was or how much it hurt. Once Dick learned to read, he blotted out how his grandmother had thwacked him with a switch when he missed something she thought he should know. It was what the priest had done to her. He said the pain would help her remember the next time. Make it sound alive, his grandmother would say with a swat. Give it life, louder, like you're sure of it. Now, back to the lesson. Writing went no better. What's the W for? It's tricking me. Ben was wincing to keep back tears when the lady ordered Whittington back up to his storytelling place on the rail. The cat waited for the horses to come back in. He needed a moment to gather himself. He was shaking. Dick had been with Fitzwarren for almost 2 years. He was 10. He'd grown. He'd learned something of the mercer's trade. On New Year's Day, Fitzwarren gave Dick a halfpenny. It doesn't sound like much, but it was a valuable sum then. As Dick walked to the docks, he fingered the coin in his pocket and wondered about what he should buy. Suddenly, he saw my great-great-grandmother's grandmother, 30 generations back. The strange cat eyed him in a knowing way and nodded. Dick knew he had to have that cat. He'd thought about getting a cat to check the mice and rats that skittered in his room at night and gnawed his things. He knew the cook wouldn't allow it. There was something arresting about the way this cat engaged eyes. Most animals won't lock eyes with men. Goats do, and snakes, which is why we associate them with evil. The rest of us look away in shame or embarrassment when someone looks us in the eye. But this was different. This was a stare of recognition, the way you can't take your eyes off someone you're eager to see. You want to embrace them with your eyes. Dick's hair went up. He knocked on the door behind where the cat was sitting. Silence. He knocked again. Nothing. Again he knocked. At last, there was a shuffling and the door opened a little and then a little more, as if whoever opening it was having a hard time getting used to the light. Finally there stood before Dick an ancient bald man in a long velvet coat, the deep green color of sea moss. His brown fur collar was turned up. The man said nothing. He just looked at the boy. He was slight. His skin was milk white and almost transparent, wrinkled like tissue paper. At first, he seemed to recognize Dick. In the next instance, it was as if he were staring through him. Sir, stammered the boy, will you please sell me your cat? The man looked down at the cat as if he'd never seen her before.
Then he looked at Dick and studied him from head to toe. Finally, he asked in a high old man's voice how much money he had.
"Halfpenny, sir."
The man nodded and held out his hand. His hand was thin. He had long fingers. Dick dug for his coin and laid it in the man's palm. The palm was warm and dry. The long fingers closed slowly around the coin, and the man slipped back inside. Dick didn't have to pick up his cat or lead her away on a string. The cat followed him as if they'd always walked together. When they got home, he tried to sneak her to his room. The cook caught him. She always knew everything.
"What have you there?" she asked, smacking his shirt.
The cat heaved out and shot up the stairs.
"Nay!" she bellowed. "Nay to knit bags, nay to pets!"
She snatched her broom and took after the cat like she'd spotted at Dick that first evening. The stairs up to the attic were narrow. Dick's room were low and tight. Wheezing and out of breath, she took a swipe here and a swipe there. Her broom never met the cat. It was like she were fanning a butterfly that, almost without her seeing, sailed downstairs and disappeared.
I'll have it out with your master, I will," she stormed.
She never did. She softened toward the cat when it presented the rat that had been spoiling the potatoes. That evening, Fitzwarren came home with a ship captain who shared the merchant's passion for rare plants. Fitzwarren's best knuckle-boned bed was set aside for things that the captain had brought him. In the last light, the two men looked carefully at a thick shoot sprouting from a large nut found floating off the African coast. A few yards on there was a collection of aromatics: peppermint, catmint, lavenders, sages. There was a gravel bed of thymes, some rough, some woolly, large-leaved and small, from France, Spain, and Greece. You picked up their scent if you so much as brushed them. The bees loved those plants. Beyond, against a wall, was a row of grafted fruit trees the captain had brought Fitzwarren over the years. Dessert that night was a compote of fruits from those trees: peaches, pears, and cherries, and honeyed brandy. The cherries colored the syrup dark red. Back inside, the two men talked, heads close together. As the punch bowl emptied and filled, the captain's tongue loosened, and he told Fitzwarren about a powerful herb to be found on the Barbary coast. The herb was said to melt painful stones of the kidney and bladder, a great affliction in those times and now. The captain couldn't tell his friend more about this precious herb because he'd been sworn to secrecy by the king who told him about it. It was the king's dream to harvest this plant and make a fortune for his people, the way the ancient Phoenician princes at Tyre had profited from the secret of the purple dye they got from the shellfish murex. The captain had just finished speaking when the cat came in with a plump brown rat. She laid it at the captain's feet. Fitzwarren was embarrassed. He'd already scolded Dick about wasting his money on a pet. Now this disgrace. The captain was delighted. "What a fine cat! In London you're never more than 6 feet from a rat. It's even closer on shipboard. They foul our food, they make stinks. Why, if I had this cat with me aboard the Unicorn." The captain took Dick Whittington's cat on his lap. As he stroked her, he told about the herb, amapacheri, that would melt painful stones. He'd sworn to tell no man his secret, but he could tell the cat, and if the merchant and his boy happened to overhear, well, so much for that. Fitzwarren and the captain talked late into the night. The cat stayed snug in the captain's lap and purred, a most singular, deep, and musical purr. That night it was arranged that Dick and his cat would sail for the Barbary coast on the Unicorn and see to the buying of a cargo for Fitzwarren. Dick was to keep a sharp eye for plants. Fitzwarren gave him a purse, some sheets of stiffened cloth to press the leaves and flowers of the plants he found, a few small cloth sacks for seeds and bulbs. Fitzwarren came down to Limehouse Wharf to see them off. As Dick got ready to jump into the wherry that would carry him to the ship, Fitzwarren put out his hand, then started to wrap the boy in a hug. He caught himself and turned away. The cat jumped into a wherry on her own. 19. Out with the Owls.
Bernie brought Ben and Abby along one night when he came to tuck in the animals. It was clear and cold, no moon. The air was still. The kids were curious about where the cat slept, but he wasn't sleeping. He was jumpy. He waited until Bernie was busy with the jugs.
Ben, he whispered, can you whistle?
Sure.
Good. Let's sneak out to the pond and whistle for owls. They're claiming territory now. You can hear them. If you can whistle like they do, they'll come. Get Abby. I'll get the others.
The rooster wouldn't go. Without him, the bantams wouldn't go either. The horses couldn't go and neither could Blackie, so it was a small crowd that crunched to the far end of the frozen-over pond. The lady had never been out so late. The cat had to guide her. She couldn't see anything. Something told her it wasn't a good idea for a duck to be out calling owls at night, but Whittington insisted. Ben held Abby's hand hard. When I was little and scared of the dark, Mom told me it's never absolutely black out, Abby said. Once your eyes adjust, it's blue velvet because of the stars. Look up. It's like somebody threw glitter. They stopped and looked. Anyway, Abby continued, even if you can't see, you can sense things like trees and stones in your way. The lady couldn't. Ben couldn't either. As they bumped and stumbled along, the lady asked Whittington, "How can you see where you're going?" "I'm nocturnal," she answered. The lady was too proud to ask what nocturnal meant. It always annoyed her when Whittington used big words. She'd had a brother who was a smarty like that. Alas, he got taken by the hawk. As soon as she remembered that, she forgave Whittington. The cat sensed her annoyance.
"It means I'm a night creature," he said.
Then they could all see. The pond loomed like an opal. It seemed to float in its own light above the land around it. They could see the puffs their breaths made. The owls were out. You could hear them. Ben picked up their call. When the cat nudged him and whispered, "Whistle," Ben gave a low, fluttering call that drifted down in tone, like the owl's love song. "Again," Whittington said. Ben whistled again. They heard something. A few seconds later, there was a rush of wind overhead, then a screech of rage as the owl Ben had called discovered the trick. In his surprise, the owl dropped the kill he had been carrying to his mate. Something soft and furry hit Ben's shoulder and thumped to the ground. Ben shrieked. They all ran away as fast as they could. "What were you doing?" Bernie asked as they stumbled back into the barn. We have a picture. There's the owls you can see, and Abby, Ben, the lady, and Whittington. The kids were bright-cheeked and out of breath. Whittington was fluffed up like when he'd fought Havy. The lady had flapdashed all the way back. It would take her a while to settle her feathers. Bernie was loading the jugs on the shed. He didn't wait for an answer. He let the kids go out before him. Then he pushed the door to and slid in place the board that held it shut. Anyone who wanted to could get in, but this was Bernie's way of locking up. As Bernie and the kids stumped up the hill, the lady settled in her nest of hay and feathers by the door. The cat lay down close beside her. The rats came out to dance, squeaking, leaping, mock-boxing, chasing tails, rolling over each other in somersaults and flips, all to their own music. It happened every night after Bernie left. As suddenly as it had begun, their dance ended and they went their separate ways to hunt for food. When they came back, the rats rolled together in a warm ball in their underground sleeping parlor. The lady turned her head almost completely around and tucked her bill under her wing. The chickens did the same with their beaks. Whittington's nose was under his paws, one folded over the other. The horses closed their eyes. Soon, the only sounds in the barn were breathing and an occasional snort when one of the horses blew out a hay tickle. We'll read one more. Chapter 20, Spooker is Sick. One morning, the kids and Bernie noticed that Spooker didn't frisk around the paddock to greet them when they arrived. She pawed the ground. More alarming, she didn't eat. At noon, when Bernie went back with Havy, Spooker was lying on her side, rolling and groaning. Havy went over, sniffed her thoughtfully, and investigated her droppings. The dog took a scientific interest in illness. If a chicken was sick, Havy nosed it like a medic. A dead one she'd stand over soberly like a paid mourner. Bernie called the vet. The vet told him to get Spooker back on her feet and keep her walking until she could get there.
Colic, the vet said. Cramps. She's rolling to get the pain out. Get her walking or she'll get her stomach all twisted up and then there's no saving her.
Bernie tried to get her up, but he couldn't. He called Al and Wayne, the mechanic, to come out from the Texaco. They shut down the station and rushed over to save the horse. Al brought along the hand winch they'd used to move cars. It had a broad belt on one end and a hook at the other. He fixed the hook to a stanchion and worked the belt under the horse. The three men cranked the winch and got Spooker up. She groaned deeply with every breath and kept trying to lie down again. She wasn't interested in walking. Havy sat and watched. She'd never shown such interest in the horse before. The vet's ambulance was a red pickup with heavy tires, stainless steel lockers, and drawers built into the sides, a sterilizer, drums of water and medicine, pumps, hoses, and a small crane at the back. There were spotlights front and back so she could work out in a field if necessary. She could drive it anywhere. She had big, strong hands, sure hands. She spoke to Spooker with her hands. The vet closed her eyes and put her ear to the horse's side, then to her belly. Colic. She looked in Spooker's mouth. Teeth need filing. Uh-oh, Bernie said. The man who shoes them called a while back to set it up. I forgot. Horse teeth are too important to forget, the vet said. It's like you're forgetting to floss. I'll explain why in a minute. From one of the truck lockers, she took a container of castor oil and a small pump with a hose. She added calming medicine to the oil and stuck the hose in the horse's mouth. The vet pumped. The horse gagged. Spooker tried to back away, but the stuff went down. They tied her to the stanchion. The vet got out a thick, stubby rasp. With Bernie and the others cooing at the wide-eyed horse, the vet pried open Spooker's jaws, locked them open with a chuck of wood, and proceeded to file the edges of her teeth to make them sharp. She's worn the edges off, so she's not chewing fine enough, the vet explained. What she's swallowing is too big to pass through. The mass gets jammed in her gut, it ferments, gas builds up and cramps her. Another few hours it would have taken operating to save her. Bernie said he'd seen that operation on 60 Minutes. They cut open the horse, he said, took out yards and yards of gut, found the blockage, cut that out, sewed up the pipe, stuffed the guts back inside that horse every which way, sewed her up again. And you know, she lived. What was it that you added to the oil? The narcotic? It's for her cramps. Codeine and something like Pepto-Bismol. She'll doze on that all day and most of tomorrow. If I'd given you that dose, you'd be off playing harps. As the vet packed her kit, she said, watch her poops. She's going to go a lot the next day or two because of the castor oil. Then she'll taper off what she's supposed to do regular, which is 4 or 5 a day. It's like my Italian grandma said, clear bowels, a merry heart. Bernie kept Spooker strapped so she couldn't lie down. She was in dreamland for the better part of 2 days, doing everything the vet said she would do. In her professional capacity, Havy studied every evidence of that horse. Then Spooker was better and very hungry and forgot how they tied her up and purged her and made her mouth hurt. Forgetting is forgiving. We'll stop there for today. Hopefully we'll have another video for you tomorrow, another couple chapters. I hope you're enjoying it. Remember to add any comments that you'd like in our Google Doc. You can also comment on the post and make sure to watch the next video. See you guys later. Bye-bye.